Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday night edition of Spaced Out Radio, one day before the long weekend of Easter. So make sure you have as much fun as possible tonight, even though we'll be here tomorrow as well. So you got to have fun then. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. Dirty Filth is here as well. We're going to have a great time talking cryptids, tulpas, paranormal, and so much more. So the cool part about it is all of you are here as well. Who do we have? Excuse me. We have Race Fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, Tim Mothman and his goatee with a nice bronze medal tonight. As we continue on with roll call, here's James Horn, Robert Lamoth, Chris 716, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, and Les Paul Holland strumming away in Australia. Hi, Karen in the Woo Train, Bar Madison, Luscious Jules, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Laura Lobbs and Dragonfly, nice to see you. Deidre, the birthday girl, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deidre. Happy birthday to you. And just for that, Deidre will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio, you must be wearing a birthday party hat. Otherwise, she won't sign. Scrolling on down, we have Eternity Eternal and Castle Dude. Good morning to you. Gizmo, my man. How's it going? As we continue on with roll call, there's Corey and Phyllis Boucher Perry. Thank you for joining us. John Lamb, how you doing, my man? As we continue on with roll call, scrolling on down, there's Big Bad T-Bone. He's a good steak, that guy. Trust me on that one. And scrolling on down, who do we have next? Phillip Backanuts, David Hayworth, Millennium, my man, and Human Carl is here. Human Carl will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Aaron Bacca, how you doing? Nice to see you. Audacious Amber, thank you for coming on in. W. David Page, Wild Berry, Majdi, how are you? And good to see you all. Susan Alloway, Brandon Coast, thanks for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Who's on Facebook? Let's take a little peeky poo here. It's Ozzy Ange. How are you, Ozzy Ange? Much love to you. Scrolling on down. Who's next? Well, let's take a look. It's Abbott Hoffman. Jim Wimborough, welcome to SOR Chat. We love you too, my man. And who else is next? Super Knower. First Floor Audio. How you doing? Good to see you. And who's next? Nina Williams. Sweet Robbie G. Thank you for coming on in, Sweets. We love you, buddy. Dizzy F. and Reed, nice to see you. And who else is next? Jennifer. She's like Beyonce, Madonna. She's just Jennifer. That's it. Mike Rivers, thank you for joining us. And who's next? Let's scroll on down. Perminator, what's happening? Cosmic Joe, how you doing? Phil the Stalker, thanks for coming on in. And Mac Geek, good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let's get the radio side started. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight we are in roll call, waiting for Varla Ventura to join us momentarily for another night of our cryptid world. It's going to be a good night as we await Bill WD-40 to lube us up for tonight's show. B. Woykin, how you doing? Kathleen Hughes, Sandra Kincaid, thank you for joining us. Lex Diaz, always a pleasure to have you here. Hi there, Brown Dwarf. It's going to be a good night tonight. I can feel it. I can feel it. My chest is killing me. Yeah. Don't worry. It's not a heart attack. It's just from workout pains. That's all. Knight Rider, thanks for coming on in. As we got about 30 seconds before we go to start the show. Yeah. Let's do it. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. And Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you to those who will Super Chat tonight. Hi, Bobbert. How you doing? Everybody else, throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. Yep, we got good stuff there too. Tonight's show brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show coming up for you tonight. Varla Ventura returns with Our Cryptid World, where we take a look at the darker side of the paranormal and supernatural world that we live in. Then in hour 3, Steve Stockton has another great story from Among the Missing. It is Robin Haynes here with the Cryptid Report, and it's Dave 101 night, and we'll get to the strange news of the week. Here we go. One of our favorite guests each month is Varla Ventura, accomplished author, her website, varlaventura.net. She's the author of Varla Ventura's Paranormal Parlor, Ghost Seances, and Tales of True Hauntings, along with Fairies, Pookas, and Changelings, a complete guide to the wild and wicked enchanted realm. She has a number of other books that can be found at any major bookstore or online at varlaventura.net. We bring her in each month because she's one of the most romantic people when it comes to monsters. She loves them, and we love her talking about them. Let's bring her in. Varla Ventura, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Oh, I'm lovely. Thanks for having me. Always great to be here. Always inspiring to hang out with you and Filth and all your beautiful audience.
What have you been drinking before tonight's show?
Just a little water. I'm properly hydrated. I'm ready.
Yes.
My kidneys are functioning.
I had a hard workout yesterday because for people who've been following along, I'm trying not to be fat. Okay. All right. I'm trying really hard, and I worked out yesterday, and my problem that I have, and I got to change this setup somehow, and I haven't quite figured out how yet, but I lean over too much. And then I slouch when I'm speaking. And I think it's my chair. And it's like putting like pressure right on my chest. So it feels like it's like, real tight in there. Just so uncomfortable. I got to fix that. Yeah. Yeah. First world problems of Dave Scott right there.
No, you probably just need a little something to push you forward so you kind of, arch out a little bit more.
Not a lumbar kind of guy.
Well, maybe that needs to change.
No. First thing I do when I get into my vehicle, if anybody has messed with the lumbar, is I get rid of it. Can't stand it.
No
Can't stand
poking.
it. Yeah, I know. Now, usually we get a hockey update because for some ungodly reason you allowed your son to be a goaltender. How was hockey season for you?
Hockey season was challenging. Had a lovely group of kids, but not a lot of material success, I guess. But as a goalie, that can be a really good thing. So we're about 4 days out from kicking into spring and summer hockey, which you may not have you, of course, Dave, know that that's a thing. But that's a thing. It's you. If you really want to compete, you want to stay with it and stay in hockey shape. So my son loves it, and I love him. What can I say? And hockey's a great sport. It's enjoyable to watch. And this spring and summer hockey has a little bit more of a party vibe, especially from the parent point of view, because there's not as much pressure. You're not trying to make a specific team, or it's fun. You win a couple tournaments, travel a little bit, but mostly you're just getting a little break from the humidity. And I love that, actually. I never realized how wonderful it is to go into a rink in the middle of summer, and you get kind of chilly but not quite as chilly, and then to walk out into the warmth and humidity. I love that transition. It's glorious.
Well, I'm training my son in the off season here. And so we're playing. I set up a little rink in our basement, and we were playing a little one-on-one hockey with a rubber hockey puck, like one of them orange hockey pucks.
Yep. We've got quite a few. I'm probably sitting on one right now.
Probably, yeah. So, anyways, yesterday we're playing a game, and he cross-checks me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. I said, "You want to go?" He goes, "Yeah," and he drops the gloves. So he's trying to jersey him, mess him around, shake him around a little bit, and he
just like the big boys.
He hits me with his right hand, knocks my glasses off.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So now I gotta kind of give him a couple, couple of soft ones just above the ear, and he did something that impressed me. He switched hands and started throwing lefts. And he hit me twice right under my right eye socket, right on the corner there.
Ooh, that actually can hurt.
Hey, I'm still tender, but I'm proud of him. I mean, this is how you do it. Okay. So for all the weirdos out there who think hockey doesn't need a little bit of fighting in it, go away. All right.
I don't think you could take it out even if you tried.
Go slice some oranges and take it to the soccer field where all the parents hate their children. Okay. And go from there. But that's my sports analogy for today. But that's why I love it when you're on, so that way we could talk hockey. And
yeah, we always got to get a little hockey talk in. I'm impressed with myself that I can keep up now. I've learned so much in the last.
I remember when you
7 years or so that he's been playing. Yeah, really seriously.
Good for you. Good for you. All right.
Well, the funny thing is, Dave, wait, now just back to hockey for a second.
Okay.
So here, I don't know exactly what age in Canada. It's probably very similar because we play you guys all the time. But at about, I think for us, we call it the bantam level, which is basically 14, 15, or turning 14, 15. That is the age at which kids can start checking legally, right? You can't back check, of course, but you can check. And it's kind of hard to remember that when my son's not at that level, he's going into that level. It's kind of hard to remember when you see it because you're used to going like, oh, you're not allowed to, and then they're doing it. But I've had so many parents who've said to me over the years, how can you let your son be a goalie? Like, it's just all these things flying out. I'd be such a nervous wreck all the time and all the pressure. And now I'm basically just like, You're all worried now about your sons getting checked. And guess who's not worried about that? Guess who's going to have a relaxed year going into Bantams?
Yeah,
The
just
goalie mom.
wait till your son gets ran behind the net and he starts hitting some kid in the face with his block.
That has actually happened a couple times already, and it's mildly amusing.
Yes.
But
all right, let's get to why people here, because you and I could talk hockey all night.
I know we
all
could, and we should sometime.
We absolutely should. Yeah, I think I'm going to start a hockey show on my channel.
You should.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get into a few little topics that we've delved into in the past, but we've never gone deep into the weird stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to chat with you tonight is about tulpas. Now, tulpas are allegedly human created in the mind of putting energy into weird creatures that seem to become real. We've seen this with a number of creepypasta type stories, and we're going to get into that tonight. Now, for people who may not know what creepypasta is, it's very popular on the podcast and YouTube side of things, where people will be very creative with their writing and write fantasy stories of whether it's Bigfoot or aliens or creatures that we've never heard of before. How do you think creepypasta, Varla, has really helped define the monster's ball of sorts?
Well, it's interesting because, horror has always been a thing, right? And it's this it's sort of Blair Witch Project-ish. If you remember Blair Witch Project, it was made to look as if these kids just happened to have a camera with them and they stumbled into the woods and they stumbled upon this ceremony. And when it was first released, they kept it as much under wraps as they could so that the first, few rounds of people who saw it thought it was actually something that happened. I don't know how many people really believe that, but it certainly led you to question. And so I think I kind of think of that sort of the creepypasta trend within podcasting in particular as the sort of Blair Witch Project. Like, it could have happened. It could be true. It's based on things that have happened. It's based on certain stories or folklore. And so it has this element of truth. And I'm not opposed to it. I love all the weird things, and I love the things that kind of manifest from that. But who am I to draw a line in the sand, right? I wrote a book about mermaids, so I'm not exactly going to go around saying yours is good and yours is invalid. But I think it's contributed to the landscape of those of us who love to consume the weird, be it in fiction or nonfiction or, radio shows, podcasts, books, whatever it is. So it's certainly, there's just like such a vast array of talent where maybe not an array. There's a vast difference in talent. You got some really good stuff, and then you've got some stuff that, is not so good.
No, and I understand that. It's becoming more and more prevalent with story time and people now submitting. I think a lot of it, though, I honestly believe that with a lot of this creepypasta stuff that's out there, I do believe that more and more people it has allowed more and more people, I should say, to write their experiences down and share it with these different channels that are out there. And I think that's a good thing that more people are talking about what they've experienced.
Absolutely. You've got the campfire stories, and then you've got there is so much value in the shared story experience. It's really kind of what keeps the paranormal community going, really. Without that, it's interesting because I think you don't really have a lot of evidence, right? We've got we've got some videos and some audio clips and things like that, but I could fake something and send it to you and say, "Oh, I definitely saw a Bigfoot," right? So what we have are our stories and our own authentic experiences. And so that the sharing of those experiences and hearing other people, it allows us to feel less, not just alone, but also just sort of understanding that what we've experienced is valid and real, and as opposed to living in denial of it for most of your life, or being afraid of it, or just not having anyone, I mean, like the stories always, I don't really believe in this stuff, but let me tell you what happened to me, or I didn't really believe and then this thing happened. So that kind of like shared experience of having had a paranormal encounter, or had a UFO sighting, or things like that. Like there's so much. It's all we have, really. Like, we don't really have, I mean, UFO community is a little bit different because there is a lot more evidence there. But like, we don't really have a big, I mean, there really is no proof, right? There really is no proof. You could argue with me that there's proof, and I will argue back that there really isn't. There really isn't any like quantifiable proof. However, the proof is in the acceptance that we don't have the proof and that our stories are valid. It takes it to a different place. It values the story. It values people's experiences above the tangible proof all the time. And I think that feeds our ability to tap into the spiritual realm and, commune with other beings. Personally, I think we spend so much time trying to have evidence, and the evidence is right here before us, and it's in what we're sharing, and it's in what we're talking about. And you can choose to believe someone or choose not to believe someone. That's obviously everybody's choice. But the process of just getting to know the world of other experiences and seeing the parallel things that people have experienced, that's what we have. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. We don't have to have a document that proves everything that we believe is real. We don't have to have a book that tells us that this is how things go. We can just believe and have that shared belief.
A lot of these stories lead down to the word tulpas. For people who may not know what a tulpa is, I'd love for you to describe that.
So a tulpa is kind of the idea that if a collective of people are thinking of something, they manifest it. So the way it was first explained to me, actually, it was in an anthropology class many years ago. And it was, if we all look at the sky together, if we all go outside this classroom and we look at the sky together, and I say that cloud looks like a dragon, if everybody collectively starts thinking that the cloud looks like a dragon, they're all going to be able to see a dragon in the sky. Now, this was a magic and religion anthropology class. So the idea wasn't to say that we're all going to imagine something and it's going to appear, and that's a made up, discredited thing, but quite the opposite, that the power of our minds and our mindset can manifest something. So at its essence, a tulpa is sort of a collective imagining of something that then manifests into at least what's perceived as real experiences. That's a very Varla explanation. That was not particularly concise or probably much of an explanation at all. But yeah, you get what you pay for,
I hear you there. Yeah, we're gonna have a new guest for the. Well, let's see what the definition for our audience is. Tulpa is a concept originally from Tibetan Buddhism and found in later traditions of mysticism and the paranormal of a materialized being or thought form, typically in human form, that is created through spiritual practice and intense conversation or concentration, pardon me. Okay, and there was a university that did one of these Tulpa experiments. I don't know
that
if
would
you.
be so fun.
It's called the Phillip experiment. So
Oh.
this happened in 1972, where a parapsychology experiment was conducted in Toronto to determine whether subjects can communicate with fictionalized ghosts through expectations of human will. The experiment was covered by this Toronto Psychological Research Society, led by mathematical geneticist Dr. A.R. George Owen and overseen by psychologist Dr. Joe Witten. The test group consisted of Owen's wife, Iris Owen, former chairperson of Mensa in Canada, Margaret Sparrow, industrial designer Andy H., his wife, Lauren, heating engineer Al Peacock, accountant Bernice M., bookkeeper Dorothy O'Donnell, and sociology student Sydney Kay. Their goal was to create a fictional character through the purpose methodology and then attempt to communicate with them through a seance. The character created and agreed upon was named Phillip Aylesford, referred to as Phillip during the test. His fictional history partially coincided with actual events and places, but with multiple contradictions and errors. He was born in so this is what they made up. He was born in 1624 in England, had an early military career, and was knighted by the age of 16. He was involved in the English Civil War and became personal friends with Charles II. Working for him as a spy, Phillip was unhappily married to a woman named Dorothea and later fell in love with a Romani girl who was accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. In despair, Phillip committed suicide in 1654 at the age of 30. So that was the story they created.
That's an interesting story to come up with.
So the group sits down around a table with initial seances, yielding no contact, no communication, and no phenomena. Owen changed test conditions by dimming lights and changing the environment to mimic that of a more traditional seance. Participants then began feeling a presence. There was table vibrations, breezes, unexplained echoes, and rapping sounds, which matched responses to questions about Phillip's life. At one point, the table tilted on a single leg, and at other times moved across the room without human contact. Although audio, video, and witness accounts documented the paranormal phenomena, Phillip never appeared to the participants.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's try it tonight.
I would love
let's
to.
all think of someone. Let's make somebody up, and then we'll see if that person's. So I think that in more sort of like modern paranormal terms, the tulpas that we're talking about and kind of the internet world or whatever are things like the Slender Man, which someone supposedly just made up, and then it became this kind of like caught on phenomenon that everybody started seeing the Slender Man, or the Bloody Mary, right? You look into the mirror and you see Bloody Mary a certain number of times. You know, what teenage girl hasn't tried that one? So those are the kind of like sort of, you know, the modern take on the Tulpa experiment.
Right. And we got to give a shout out to our main man, Merle. Who sends his warm regards to Varla Ventura, our guest tonight on Our Cryptid World. Varla joins us near the end of each month to talk about the weird and strange and dark side of the paranormal supernatural world. Spaced Out Radio continues with Varla as we look into Tulpas, Hatman, Siren Head, Slender Man, and many more coming up on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. there we go.
Preacher
is not too bad. Not too bad.
I should.
He's a little quiet lately.
Yeah.
Love the preacher. Love the preacher.
I don't know if you really. Maybe I shouldn't even say this because I know this part is being recorded. But when you guys picked me up from the airport in Las Vegas, that whole, you're like, just that whole experience of actually meeting people, like meeting you in real life, even though I felt like I really knew you, but I'd never actually met you in real life. So that was all kind of surreal. And then we're just barreling down the highway. It's like 1,000,000 degrees out. We're in Preacher's old, what was like a beat up, what was that?
Land Rover or something like that.
Yeah, Land Rover. No seatbelts on. And then he says, Merle's in the front, and he says, well, I might need you to take over here in a minute if my eye doesn't stop bleeding.
Right. Yeah.
And that was how the weekend started.
That's how it started.
That was incredible. It was incredible. I hadn't, honestly,
Land Cruiser.
I don't think I had an experience like that since I was, like a teenager or something. It was just so outrageous on every level, but also incredibly wonderful.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. That's our preacher, everybody.
Yeah, he is a wonderful companion. We had a lot of fun that weekend.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We're gonna move the dates next year.
You should.
Yeah, so that way Varla can come for our party again.
Yeah, you know what? Consult with me before you pick them. If you, that's what you really should do. I mean, come on.
All right. We'll get that figured out. We'll get it figured out for your number 4.
If I go, Filth will go. Right, Filth? Yeah. Paint if you say yes.
Hold on, he's got to hit about 16 switches before he can turn his mic on. Hi, Castle Dude. How you doing?
It's all that analog stuff. All right, what was the question?
If I go, you'll go, right?
Yes.
That's all.
Are you providing menthol cigarettes the entire time?
Yes. I'm providing. I'll pick you up on the broom.
I can't wait. I look forward to being in the States because you get the menthol cigarettes with that flavor.
The little squishy thing? Camel
little
Crunch.
squishy that goes crunch. Oh, I like those.
Ironically, the first... Oh, what happened?
We don't have those in Canada.
What did you do, Varla?
I don't know. All of a sudden, my screen
went
changed. Blue? Yeah, no, it just changed, and it changed to something. I must have been like audio activated.
Yeah.
It tried to play a song.
Hey,
it's a Tulpa!
Have you tried to remodulate the phase variance on the EPS manifold for that?
I did, and I pushed the one to the left instead of the one to the right. So, my bad.
Unbelievable.
I know. I'm a jerk. They shouldn't even let me behind the wheel.
Yeah, or Preacher.
Or Preacher.
Preacher gave me a ride to the airport. He's the best. I owe that guy
Preacher must have made about 17 trips to the airport.
I know. And he drove all the way from, where was he? He's in North Carolina. Yeah.
He just loves to drive. He loves driving.
I do not. I like to be able to drink while I travel. Maybe he does too. I like to toddle down the train with a gin and tonic and just yuck it up. It's much more my style. What? Am I alone here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Fine.
Yeah.
No, that was absolutely amazing. It was amazing and hilarious and delightful.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
You struggling, Dave?
My eyes are dry right now. All right. I think we're close to coming out of break here anytime.
Oh, okay, I'll be quiet.
Yeah. Big thank you to T-Bone for the super chat. Thank you for kicking things off tonight. Very much appreciate it. And remember, people, that you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag. None whatsoever. You can wear our gear out proudly in public.
Who makes all your swag, Dave?
Get a science blob shirt.
Yeah, here we go, everybody. Here we go with the second half hour Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time where we say hello to Varla Ventura. Our Cryptid World is the show, and we always love it when Varla is here, hanging on out with us, talking all sorts of monsters, and we are talking about Tulpas tonight. Human-created monsters. VarlaVentura.net is her website. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. Right
Let's
before the break,
create some monsters.
Yeah, right before the break, we told the story of the Phillip experiment back in the early 1970s. What's amazing to me is publicly, I don't think there's been many other people actually try to do something like that and create their own tulpas. But we have seen it before. You know, creepypasta stories like Slender Man, Siren Head, many others, Bloody Mary.
Who's Siren Head?
Oh, he's like a tall human being who has a siren as a head, and he walks around stealing children.
Oh, of course. One must do something dramatic if you have a siren on your head. Yeah. Well, you know, it's a real interesting thought, especially, you know, when you were reading sort of the textbook definition of it coming from Tibetan ideology, right? Like the idea that you can manifest something as a collective. That is not a foreign concept, though, right? That is a concept that is universal around the world. The idea that, I mean, that's the base principle of magic. The idea of being able to manifest things. And we've seen things, we've seen the experiments with water, where, you know, the power of positive thought. The guy that in the early 2000s published that book, I cannot remember his name. I want to say it was Hiramoto, but he put out this book where basically they put water and they put it in the middle of a room, and they had everybody think really negative thoughts, and then they analyzed the water molecules, and then they had everybody think really positive thoughts, and they actually analyzed the molecules, and they looked differently, showing that collective thought could actually transform matter. So it's not a huge leap to think of a collective of people manifesting something. Now, the description, though, that you're reading of this Phillip experiment sounds more like they, you know, something came through than them manifesting it. It's a fine line, right? Like, is it that we're manifesting something at a seance, or is something coming through? How do you even know that or define that? It's really just, you decide, I'm going to decide that this is an entity trying to contact me, and I'm going to channel an entire novel from that contact, right? Which is like the crux of the spiritualist movement that happened again and again. Or are you going to decide that it's, psychokinetic and that everybody's thoughts are moving the planchette and that we're manifesting this thing into being because we all believe it? And it's a very difficult thing to really define, but at the core of it, does it matter? Because you're taking something that is imagined on one level and manifesting it into something physical. So it doesn't really matter if you say, oh, this is a tulpa or this is a ghost, right? I don't know. It's just very interesting because that whole description made me think, have they not read any of the accounts of what happened with the Fox sisters? Like, come on, I'm sure they had. It's if they're setting the vibe for the seance. But I think, as somebody that practices magic, I think that that's really what you're up against with magic all the time is a lack of belief that it's going to manifest, or and everybody goes through times where they feel like they can manifest it or they can't. And I think that that's kind of at the core of it is your mindset really takes over. So I could put all this stuff into a little cauldron for you and mix it up and just be like, yeah, it's going to be your good luck spell. But if I'm like grumping out and not giving it the belief that it is actually going to help you, then it's kind of broken at its core. That's probably what's wrong with modern medicine, to be honest with you. The broken core of the connection between, mind, body, and spirit.
I can see that. Let's talk a little bit about the whole imagination of these creatures, because a lot of kids will get together. They'll make up these creatures. I mean, Bloody Mary is one that is comes to mind right off the bat, where you're supposed to stare into the mirror and chant her name 3 times, and it's
or 13,
or is it 13 times?
I mean, it just depends on, who's running the show.
Right. So apparently in the ritual of today, Bloody Mary allegedly appears to individuals and groups who ritualistically invoke her name in the act of catopromancy or catoptromancy. I don't even know what it means. This is done by repeatedly chanting her name into a mirror placed in a dimly lit or candlelit room. The name must be uttered 13 times, you're right, or some other specified number of times.
Yeah, it could be 6, you just,
yeah.
There's a cemetery in Vancouver near you. There's a cemetery in Vancouver that I remember I went there so long ago. It was probably like the late 90s, like 1999 or, Nirvana era. But I was living in the Pacific Northwest and I went to this cemetery and was told by some jogger passing by that there's a statue of the Virgin Mary, and that this statue, if you go there on Halloween night and you chant Bloody Mary, her eyes bleed blood. Now, I wasn't there on Halloween. I think I was there in like November or something, but I did go and see the statue, and I don't remember the name of the cemetery, but it's that cemetery that's right along the water, and the fog comes in as you're walking through the cemetery, and it's really very glorious right in downtown there. Anyway, yeah, there's another way to get to Bloody Mary.
I never knew. Well, according to reports, this is what she looks like. She's hideously mutilated, but in others, she is beautiful but bloody. More commonly, though, every aspect of her appearance is vague. Her spectral origin story is all over the place, too. She's tragically disfigured and out for revenge, or she's been killed by a jealous lover. So many different turns and twists with Bloody Mary.
So doesn't that, there's a little bit of a banshee in there too, right? The shapeshifter sometimes appears as a beautiful woman, sometimes as an old hag, occasionally some kind of winged creature. screams, freaks you out, can look really scary, and then foretells of, extreme doom or death. Kind of very, I don't know. Am I the only one who's seeing the parallel there? Like, to me, that sounds very similar to that. Is it a tulpa, or are we just naming things that are already out there and they're just like, yeah, sure, you can call us whatever you want. We're just going to swoop in here and, wreak a little havoc and then go back to the fairy realm.
Well, it could be. Could very well be.
Sounds fun to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just one of the things, though, that is out there that many kids throughout the years have done. And then, of course, if you look at a creature or a creepypasta like Slender Man, then it opens up to a whole different thing, because that actually led to two young girls, I believe it was in Minnesota, where you are, who actually got charged with attempted murder, saying Slender Man told them to stab their friend like multiple times. These two girls.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
13 years old.
Yeah. They just watched like one too many Netflix documentaries about serial killers is more likely, right? Oh, but that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
I was wondering actually about the stairs, because we've talked about those stairs a few times, like the stairs that just appear in the woods. I was wondering if that's a bit of a tulpa.
Explain for people who may not understand the conspiracy around the stairs.
Yeah, so there's imagery, but I think the imagery is, could easily be photoshopped, of course, but the story is that you are walking through the woods, usually like, old growth forest or a decent size chunk of land, and you see a stairway that is kind of coming out of the ground and leading up into the sky, and it's usually like kind of overgrown, I think, and looking a little bit decrepit. And supposedly, if you go up those stairs, you don't come back down. Or you disappear, or people get a really, really ominous feeling and then run away. I've never encountered a set of random stairs in the forest. I've certainly come upon ruins of things, but never just a random set of stairs, which I personally would completely climb unless I didn't think they were structurally sound. And I just have somebody spot me, because I would want to know, like, what's going to happen. Is there an invisible door at the top? Or are you going to, just fall off the face of the earth and end up in, upside down land, or what? So just along those lines. So I don't know anyone who's ever actually seen one of these stairs, but if you look it up on the internet, there's lots of imagery and stories about it. So that's something that I wonder, well, is that a tulpa? Is that something that one person imagined, and now it has become more of a manifestation? And then also, is there a difference between something that's just completely fictionalized and a tulpa? Yeah, there's an absolute difference, right? Like a tulpa feels more legitimate, and the intention behind it feels more concentrated for, I don't know, higher reasons. Grasping, but I kind of have that feeling. Whereas, something that I've never seen those stairs, but I've also never seen, a lot of the creatures that I believe in. So that's it. Who am I? As I said, who am I to draw the line in the sand? I wrote a book about mermaids,
Oh, I hear you all too well. I totally read you all too well on that one. But how much imagination or energy has to be put into these tulpas in order to create them? Like, is it repetitive energy? Is it something that you need many people to do? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question because, you take Hatman, for example, which I don't think Hatman is a tulpa. I think Hatman is an actual kind of um, entity that people see because it's not always exactly the same, but there's frequently, this outline of a hat and a lot of the same sort of symptoms that come along with seeing the Hat Man, like sort of paralysis and not exactly fear, but some level of inability to move or do anything about it, but you're not going to be harmed by it, but you also just kind of like left to face it. That's really common. And I think that so I don't think Hatman is necessarily a tulpa. However, what I do think happens is that when I hear a story, I'll just give an example, and I don't know if this really counts as a tulpa. But when I was a teenager, I saw this sequence of lights. I may have told this story before, but I was basically up on the very top of a mountain, really far away from, off grid. There are no lights up there, and the electricity doesn't reach up there. And I was high up on this mountain called Saddleback, and I was making out with my boyfriend. It was high school, I was making out with my boyfriend on the roof of the car, and we saw these lights. This is, just to age myself, this is in the late 90s or mid 90s. And so we see these lights and we kind of notice them, but we're, whatever, we're doing our thing. And then we both sort of like stop and we look and we see these lights and they're sort of moving a little bit closer. Now, again, this is a very, very remote part of Northern California. At the time, drones weren't a thing. Now today I'd be like, oh, somebody's got their drone camera out and they're filming us, right? Like, but then we didn't know that technology may well have existed, but we didn't know that. So we got a real creepy feeling and we bailed out of there and we got as far from there as we possibly could. And we really didn't talk about it after that. We really didn't talk about it. We just kind of left it as something very strange happened. We didn't like that, made us really uncomfortable. We have no idea what that was, and we never want to find out what it is. That's sort of how we agreed to just leave it at that until about 15 years later, when I got a video from him that showed a very, very similar thing taking place in the sky that someone had filmed in a different part of Northern California. It might have even been Southern Oregon, but it was like in a fairly similar area. And it was nearly identical to what we had seen. So I don't know that was that's not a tulpa, but for me, seeing that, it made me understand that there was also some other kind of definition for this thing that I had kind of tried to forget about. So as far as the amount of intention that goes into it, I think that a lot of it is actually subconscious because people are just experiencing what they're experiencing and then they're starting to say what they saw, but it's a little bit different for each person. We are also sort of desperate to see the similarities, right? So we keep all seeing ghosts, but they have hats on. Okay, that's a hat man. We put it in the hat man category. We see lights. Okay, we know that this is some kind of UFO situation. We're going to put the UFO category. So I think that with the idea of tulpas and how much energy you put into them, perhaps the original principle of it is for everybody to get together and have this collective manifestation. I would assume you would want to manifest something like that for the good of the group, right? To like bring something forth that can help your whoever's in your community. That's probably the original intention, or wreak havoc on the enemy. That could work too. But I think with our sort of like giant grid of the world that we have now, the little bits of consciousness and thought about it aren't all sitting around the fire together manifesting it. And so it takes longer for us to get the little tidbit that, oh, so and so experienced this. So I guess that is all to say that, we might we might all be contributing to a tulpa and we don't even know it, just by nature of our experience. And it brings me back to what's the difference between a 400-year-old story about a little person or a fairy that a couple people saw, and then they're identifying it. And what's the difference between that and me saying that I, saw a creepy Slender Man outside my window?
I can see that, and is there a difference though? I mean, what about something like the Wendigo or a Skinwalker? Could we consider them tulpas, even because they are man created?
I don't know that they're man created, actually. If you look back deep into the mythology, they're not man created at all. They're mythological beings that are there to remind us that there's a difference between us and and the wild and the beast, or however you want to look at it. Something like the Wendigo, that is also an analogy for extreme greed and voraciousness. That is something that we all have inside of us, just as a vampire is, right? So if you look at it from just sort of a storytelling point of view or whatever, like that those things exist to remind us not to be like that, right? That's how we perceive it. Don't become a vampire. Don't become a Wendigo. Those things are bad. They will destroy the community. But on a different level, we also have to understand and accept that there is so much we don't know. And there's so much going on beneath the surface. And again, we have this idea that we need to prove it all, right? We've got to have scientific proof. We've got to have some sort of evidence. And I'll tell you what, Dave, I've spent a lot of time in the last couple months looking at a lot of scientific studies because I've been working on this book about plant lore and magic. And I cannot tell you how many modern scientific studies are proving exactly what people have known that plant has been able to do for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So I kind of feel like, hopefully we'll get to that place where the intersection of sort of spirituality and science, I think they overlap more than we give them credit for. And I think that the idea of these other beings, or I don't know, I can't really say if you go out and you plant this idea that there's, a fish-headed gnome in the world. I don't know. Let's see how long that takes to take off. It could be months. It could never happen. It's kind of a ridiculous notion. But the idea that we could, that's what we do with the internet, right? We're all collectively giving energy to something that is then building in and of itself, and we choose what to believe. And there's a lot on there to consume. So we're probably making tiny little tulpas every day. But I think really the essence of the tulpa is to bring something forth that has some sort of benefit.
What would the benefit be? I have no idea what the benefit would be, as we've got about 45 seconds left.
What?
You get the hell out of other people? Is that it?
Yeah, no, you're in good. You bring something forth that's in good with the underworld gods, and then they can kind of make sure the underworld gods aren't creeping up to drag you down. Or you manifest something that, can travel through time really quickly and let you know what you should or shouldn't do. I could see endless benefits with the tulpa, to be honest with you.
Of course. Always about the tulpas and the endless benefits to the underworld with Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her website. You can get her books there. Yeah. Or at any major bookstore. Or online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books can be found. I've got them. You should have them too. Spaced Out Radio Hour number 2 of Varla Ventura's Our Cryptid World continues after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Whose voice is that?
I had a ghost come in and record that.
Oh,
Sounds creepy.
I like it.
Me too.
But
all right, Dirty Phil, let's turn it over to you and your amazing art. Thank you for the blob sighting as well.
I can't feel my legs, Dave.
I know you can't.
Hold on, just there he goes. Look at that classic road trip prank. Hey, look at that. Pissed on the tree, and then they just leave him there. Yeah, everyone's done that before. It's actually kind of funny. We sell these. It's like a jug, and it's got this little adapter thing that goes on it, and it's a women's portable urinal, basically. It's the weirdest thing in the world. And I just wonder, like, okay, so you use the thing, and then what do you do after you whiz in it? You just like shake it off and put it back in your purse, or like?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I have a crazy story along the lines of what you just said.
Here you go, everybody.
It has nothing to do with the paranormal, but it's a crazy story nonetheless. So I was in Pittsburgh, and I was actually doing this like tour where I was checking out all of these sites that were related to Fred Rogers, which was totally cool. And I was writing about it. So I'd kind of been arranged to be on this tour where where he was born was this town that is maybe 5 miles outside of Pittsburgh. But instead of renting a car, I just took a cab out there because most of the things that I needed to do were right in Pittsburgh. So take a cab out there, no problem. Everything goes great. See all these cool things. Check out this cool town called Latrobe. It wasn't a taxi. I think it was an Uber coming back into town. And first of all, the guy stops and drops off some food for his grandkid, which I was like, whatever, I don't care. I'm on my own time. It's fine. I whatever. We get into town. We get into like closer to the heart of Pittsburgh, but we're still pretty far from the hotel. And he is an older man. He really, really had to pee. Like he just kept saying, I really got to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, the like helper in me is like, well, why don't you just pull over there and just go in? Like, I don't care. But you know how Uber works is like, it's a set amount.
I think I know where this is going, Varla.
Yeah, it's a set amount of money. Right. So I'm just like, okay, all right. Well, I'm happy for us to pull over. Whatever. I can give you extra money if you're worried about the time it's taking you. Because like Uber, you get a quote of how much it's going to cost. It's not like a taxi, right? So this poor guy. So I was kind of feeling bad for him. And then he just was like, I can't wait anymore. We're in.
Well, hold on. Are you in the front seat or the back seat?
I'm in the back seat. Thank God. I'm in the back seat. So I'm in the back seat and I'm actually sitting right behind him, which is better because all the view is blocked. So the guy takes out, I don't know, it was like a water bottle.
Piss jug.
Yeah, it was just like a water bottle that he had there, like a plastic water bottle. And he
Dave's gonna kill me.
And he did. He did. He just whipped it out and went to the bathroom right there in the car. And
it could have been worse. He could have asked for a hand.
It could have been a lot worse. A lot of other things could have happened. But at that point, I was sort of trapped, right? I was like, do I get out here and just hail a cab? And I have no idea where I'm at. I've never been in the city before. Do I leave him a negative review?
Imagine that review.
I don't know what to do. So I, of course, being the like storyteller and writer that I am, all I can think is, this is something that has never happened to me before. This is a completely new situation. I didn't think that this is something My horoscope said something to expect the unexpected.
You never had that on your bingo card. But was the fortune cookie correct on that?
Oh, good Lord. And I mean, it wasn't, he wasn't gross about it. It wasn't disgusting. He handled it as best he could. He just really couldn't wait. And it was.
He handled it the best he could.
I mean, that's how I felt.
Good thing he didn't hit any bumps or anything. And then, he's
and
has to let go. And then
did I
would hit the ground and it would be like, go ahead.
We didn't pull over. We were in traffic the whole time. So that's just a public service announcement to everyone who's sitting in traffic. Like, someone might be taking a piss right then and there. You never know.
Yeah, Jerry Carr. This is Spaced Out Radio with Varla, Ventura, and Dirty Filth. Our guest tonight is Dave Scott. Dave, we're absolutely out of control here.
Well, of course you are. Of course you are.
Insanity.
Your painting is beautiful. I love it.
Thanks. I'm going to go give the blob and the rest of the cats some snacks now.
All right, buddy. Thank you for a great portrait. Appreciate you.
Have a good night. Love you guys.
Love you too.
I love you.
Hi, Dark Starry Sky, my neighbor. How are you? And Ozzy Ange, thank you for coming on in. Jerry Carter, good to see you. And anybody else in here? Sneak in? Don't think so. Thank you to T-Bone ×2 and our favorite wine for another super chat. And here we go, everybody. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Falsiloquence. Falsiloquence is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on with Varla Ventura, author extraordinaire of everything paranormal and supernatural. You can find her books at any major bookstore or online at varlaventura.net. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dave. Thanks for putting up with me.
We always do. We always do.
Indeed.
No, absolutely. You know what? I love it when you're here because we could go off on so many different tangents regarding everything. And tonight we're talking about tulpas and strange, weird creatures that really shouldn't exist, but somehow people are having experiences with them. One of the ones that we wanted to talk about was the Hatman. Many people believe this shadow being is something that is created out of fear. Others believe that the Hatman has been around for centuries and millennia haunting people. What do we know about the Hatman?
Well, interestingly, I actually did a writing workshop recently with someone, and her stories that she was writing about had to do with her experience seeing the Hatman. And I didn't know this. She didn't know me. She didn't know what my deal was. I didn't know her, what her deal was. And her story came out about, her that was the story that she was working on. And it was an experience that she had. And it was really interesting to talk to her because this was somebody that had experienced the Hatman a long time ago, meaning that she was like in bed one night and this thing, kind of shadowy creature, came into the room, had a hat on, and she experienced sort of sleep paralysis and a great deal of terror, but also knew that there wasn't, it wasn't a human, and her life wasn't on the line, but it was a very terrifying experience, and actually took her. Sort of this writing class that I was in had to do with kind of transforming trauma into interesting stories. And so for her, it took her a very long time to talk about that because it had been very traumatic. It had a profound effect on her, but she didn't have a word for it until 10 years after it had happened. And she was describing the thing at a dinner party, and someone said, "Oh yeah, that's the Hatman. Like, look it up. This is totally like a thing, right?" So, so we had sort of some side conversations about that. But what we know about the Hatman, I mean, is, as far as I can tell, it's some kind of ghosty shadow person that has the silhouette of wearing a hat. And I have never seen a Hatman. I have seen shadow people. I think you've seen shadow people too, Dave, right? Or something like that. I've never seen one wearing a hat. But there's something about the silhouette with the hat that seems to be a recurring thing. And it's usually accompanied by a form of sleep paralysis or the inability to move. Not everybody's in bed when they see the Hatman. I've also heard countless stories of the Hatman sort of like being outside and not necessarily inside. The one thing that I do know about the Hatman is that the Hatman returneth, right? Like the Hatman frequently comes back. A lot of people who have seen the Hatman see the Hatman more than once. It's not like some other entities where you might only see it once and not really know what to make of it. But I think the hat part of it makes it very distinguishable. But Dave, that experiment they do sometimes in school where they tell you, okay, we're going to show you these pictures, and then you look at everything you can, and then we want you to describe this scene to us. And some people remember the license plate, and some people remember the color of the car, and some people don't remember anything but the color of the sky. It's very, and it's like a psychology thing to show you how subjective it can be. So I think that also happens with the Hatman, but then there's that one thing that is a little bit more distinguishing, which is the hat itself, right? So that's like, so I could say, oh, it was a bowler hat. And you might say, oh, well, I would call that more of a fedora. It's just sort of people's perceptions and then the words that they use for things. But the hat in itself is the distinguishing characteristic, other than the, sleep paralysis and the shadowy nature of the silhouette.
Wow. I mean, when we look at this Hatman creature, a lot of people believe he looks like an undertaker, so to speak.
Yeah, more like a top hat, or I don't know. It depends on what kind of undertaker. Yeah, some people might see a fedora. I don't think it's a manifestation of death in any way. If that's where perhaps the thought is leading with the undertakerness of it. To my knowledge, there's very few things that actually will foretell your death. And those things are usually like a banshee, a witch, or a dream. Take your pick of what's going to actually tell you that you're going to die. But generally, I think the silhouette of an undertaker is certainly an intimidating and terrifying silhouette. So I think that our minds might make that leap. If it's scary and it has a hat, then it must look like an undertaker. But the way that the most recent conversation that I had, which was in the last 2 weeks, the way that she described it was more of like a fedora. And then, of course, in the class is a guy sitting there wearing a fedora, because you can't take a writing class without someone in a fedora. So then we're all kind of like looking at it like, maybe you should take your hat off. because it really was, it was kind of a traumatizing experience. But so I've actually heard it described in many different ways, but it's just that there's this other kind of silhouette. And I think it's almost like a humanizing silhouette. If I was going to try and impersonate a human in any way, I am living my head's just like this jumble of like weird shadowy vibes. I think I'd put something over it, right? To kind of make myself look more convincing and more identifiable.
You would think. Do we know when these Hatman appear? Because shadow people, from what I have learned, seem to appear when that black cloud is hovering over you. You're depressed, you're anxious, you feel that life isn't going very well, you're downtrodden, and any other adjective that you want to throw in there. And that's when a lot of people actually have encounters with shadow people at their house or in their, in their bedrooms or wherever it may be, that is very uncomfortable. And it's supposed to be a very uncomfortable feeling. Do we know?
Hatman seems to appear at night, and I don't know that it necessarily comes with that kind of uncomfortable feeling. I think that for many people, when it gets close, there can be that sort of inability to move, and that sleep paralysis is that's sleep paralysis and paranormal phenomenon are bedfellows, right? That's frequently the case. And maybe it's because if you could jump up and bolt across the room and turn on the light, you'd never see what you need to see, which is this, whatever thing is manifesting. So I would say mostly at night. I can't think of too many experiences I've heard where Hatman appears during the day. But that it's not explicitly negative. It just sort of is a thing that many people see. I think to your point about shadow people arriving, at a time when someone is particularly downtrodden, I think that just kind of flipping it and thinking about like the legend of the Puka, which is a shapeshifter. It's a trickster fairy, often appears as a horse with flowing black mane and glowing red eyes, but sometimes can appear as a somewhat harmless bunny, occasionally an eagle. Every once in a while, you hear accounts of it looking human. And when you encounter these sort of trickster spirits, traditionally, if you look at like the Celtic lexicon of the Fae, or you look at sort of the role of the trickster in indigenous cultures, there's a lesson there, right? So it's not uncommon for the Puka to prey upon someone who is the town drunk, for example, that no one will believe anyway the next day. So the most common example of that is in the movie Harvey, where James Stewart is talking to this giant white rabbit. Slightly more modern reference would be Donnie Darko, where this giant black rabbit is following this guy around. But in Harvey, he's the only one who can see this white rabbit, and he actually refers to it as a Puka, because the Puka knows that you're not credible, you're not a credible witness, and that's all part of the joke. But at the bottom line, the idea here is that if the Puka appears to you as you're stumbling home along the perilous cliff, staying for one too many at the pub, you need to probably reevaluate your life. What choices are you making, and what choices can you make differently? And so that's kind of where the trickster comes into play, right? They're tricking you. You need to be tricked, because otherwise you're just going to keep doing the same oblivious things that you have always done until you fall off the cliff. So it's really a positive thing if you look at it that way. And in that way, when you think of something like the Hatman or really any paranormal phenomenon, I am a firm believer that these things don't just happen randomly for no reason. And I think many people are in agreement that they happen. It's a gift. It's not always a welcome gift. Sometimes it's a frightening gift. Sometimes it's a confusing gift for people, but it's a gift nonetheless. And it is telling you something. It may take you years to puzzle that out, but it is a gift to encounter something like the Hatman. And for many people, something like that will change the trajectory of their life, their career, their philosophy. I know for myself, for me, I saw things from such a young age and was so validated by my incredibly witchy mother that to me, it was normal to see leprechauns and shadow people. Like that wasn't a paranormal. That was normal. So it wasn't until I got a little older and realized, oh, not everybody can see these things, that the mindset shifted and a little bit of doubt started to plant itself. But by and large, I mean, I think it's really such a gift. I'm actually really jealous of people when they tell me this like grand paranormal encounter that they've had. And I haven't had one for a while, or mine aren't that dramatic, and mine are pretty mellow. Nobody ever tries to like knock me over or anything like that. It's always just very innocuous and just enough for me to know that I'm on the right path. But I think it's that's the purpose. So even the most terrifying things, there's a reason. They're kind of reoccurring to remind you that you might just want to, well, why did I see this thing? What is it trying to tell me?
Well, I don't know if I even want the message. If that I really don't know if I want that message.
The good news is it's open to interpretation. So
it is. It is. Are these tulpa-like creatures? Are they almost cult-like as well?
I think some of them probably are. The cult of the Hatman. I could get behind that. Yeah, I think some of them probably are. I think Bloody Mary certainly has its own sort of sleepover cult, but there is an element to it that lends itself to the idea of like a seance or a Ouija board being an evil thing, right? Like we all think Ouija boards are evil because we've seen, The Conjuring. That's why we think evil. Right. Admit it. That's why you think Ouija boards are evil, right? But there are many people who understand that Ouija boards are not evil. It is a tool, it is a conduit, and it can be used. It's just it's very visceral, right? It's got words and letters, and it's very clear when the planchette moves if something's yes or no, or it can spell out the word demon or any of those delightful things. But I think, what it really comes down to is the intent behind it. And I just was talking to somebody about this, and I said the real issue with the Ouija boards is that they are it's a ritualized activity and a sacred activity, making contact with the dead, and it's been commercialized so that people are going about it without any ritual mindset at all. And that's where the danger comes in. That's when the board goes flying across the room. You got to protect yourself. You've got to also show respect. You don't just like suddenly get into necromancy. You got to work your way up to that.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. Is it much like a biker
casual
game? Where you got to be a prospect first, and then
yes, there's a whole initiatory process.
Then you finally get your full patch necromancy vest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a skull and an upside down pentagram. It's real cool.
Right. We got 5 minutes to go before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. we've talked about Hatman. We've talked about some of these other creatures that are out there that just seem to not make a lot of sense towards the public. I still
Dave.
true. They don't make a lot of sense towards the
I
public.
think the Hatman makes pretty good sense. It's just like a ghost with a hat on. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you Hatman. I'll give you Hatman. But one of the other topics I wanted to hit with you tonight is I'm seeing more and more conversations on social media of people investigating little people. These are from First Nations heritage, and they are said to be protectors of the forest. They are said to be tricksters amongst the creatures out there that you really don't want to upset because they will make your life miserable, from stealing your own personal items to even wrecking the brakes on your car. I mean, these are things that have been associated with these little people who stand about 18 to 24 inches high. What do we know about them?
Yes. My time has come, Dave. I've been saying the fairy realm is not all glitter and gold for a number of years now, and I think that there's a lot of evidence around the world to support that. Absolutely. There is absolutely an other realm, and there is absolutely a species, if you will. I would call them fairy people, good people, little people. They live around the world, and they are not just there to pollinate your garden. They do not appreciate if you aren't respectful. They require regular offerings, and they can do a lot of damage, or at least steal your key fob at minimum. Absolutely. There's actually, yes, there have been more reports of late in the last couple of years, but really these are stories that we've been hearing for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that is, I mean, certainly I'm much more well-versed in sort of Irish fairy lore in particular, but that is sort of the number one point, is to protect the natural world. There's a huge punishment for somebody who sort of just wanders into the bog without paying attention, right? You're going to get sucked in by Jenny Greenteeth and her long, craggy arms, and she's going to pull you into the swamp, and you're not going to come back because you're going to drown in the swamp because, you can't breathe underwater like the mermaids. So there's the idea that there's something that protects the barriers also to even keep you from going into those places. Whether you think you just stubbed your toe on a rock, or, I mean, there's so many stories, and you go to Ireland and you ask someone, do you believe in fairies? And they might say, yeah, or they might more likely say, not really. And then you'll say, okay, put a road right through that fairy mound, and don't just kind of cut down that tree. And we're not going to really we're not going to go that far, right? Because there's an understanding that frequently that's the connection. Something like a tree, you have tree spirits, just the whole idea of protecting the forest. So certainly, little people are out there. They're waiting. They're watching for you. And if you mess up, they're going to mess you up. That's my belief. The vengeful fairies have come. They're finally having their comeuppance.
Well, we're going to continue the vengeful fairy talk when we return on Spaced Out Radio and talk more about little people, gnomes, and we'll try and sneak in some audience questions as well, because we know Varla likes those. VarlaVentura.net is her website. You can find Varla's books at any major bookstore across North America. Sit back, chill, because the next half of the show is right after this, everybody. So stay tuned. This is Spaced Out. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Hi, Rocky Shepherd. Welcome to SOR Chat. Scuba, or make that scrub-a-dub-dub. How are you? Slow motion. What's happening? He says, I'm from Ireland. We do not fuck with the Fae.
Yeah. Whoop, whoop. It's true.
Mm-hmm. Not even Varla messes with the Fae.
No way. No way. Yeah, of course not.
Little people, yes.
Do you want to see a really crazy little person? Let's see. Can you see this little person?
That's kind of creepy.
It's a Lego Pennywise. And it's little. Love that guy.
Hi, the ferret. Hellion Beast, glad you're having fun. I heard that.
Sorry.
Yes.
I know. I should probably mute myself when we're on this break.
Out radio. That's the first ever bra snap or bra strap snap.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Hey.
You can do anything on YouTube. You can. It's ridiculous. I had to block it on my son's phone.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, if you actually take a deep, dark look into YouTube.
No, I can never. I can't.
No,
I cannot look into the heart of the soul of the corrupted soul of man like that. I might not come back.
It's actually pretty shocking what is actually on YouTube if you go deep enough. And you think of the stuff that they are actually banning on YouTube, and then you look deep into some of the very, shall we say, diverse types of videos that involve adult content. Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty realistic.
It's disturbing though that like I have no problem with that if you just call it what it is and then you Google that if that's what you're looking for. To me, it's the cloaking. I don't like the cloaking, you know. I don't like the hiding it. Just you know.
Yeah, but
put it on its own site where it belongs and access that knowingly.
Educational purposes.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of creep. Like I said, I had to block it, and there's been a lot of problems with like the kids. For a while they had YouTube Kids, and that was just a fucking farce, right? It's just like basically where all the predators went. It was absolutely ridiculous, and then they tried to backpedal and say, "Oh no, we have all this screening," and all the parents were like, "Yeah, too late. You already blew it." So yeah, I mean, the problem is you see things like that and you can't unsee them. And then,
true.
And for a really young mind to see certain things that are, like I said, I don't have a problem with them. If you want to look for them on your own under the name of what they are.
Honestly, it really makes, when you're back in the days when people actually got magazines.
Oh, okay. The swimsuit.
it really makes accidentally finding Dad's Playboy collection
like a lot so tame, right? Print. So tame. Oh my God! I wish print was like yeah. I mean, I know those, of course, still exist to a certain extent, but you're right. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Always, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the real dark turn. It's not the fucking Hatman you need to be worried about, people.
Yes indeed.
I mean,
I hear you.
Come on.
I hear you.
Oh, God.
I hear you all too well. All too well.
So, yeah. YouTube. You can do anything.
Right? Right. Well, yeah, I'm just going to tell you, way off topic here. Way off
Let us do this.
What I wouldn't do for a freaking taco right now.
A taco? Yeah. Somebody bring Dave a taco.
Oh,
God,
what?
I was actually totally you said like Pepsi earlier, and then that like I don't like Pepsi, but I love Coke.
Yeah, sorry about
So
that.
ever since then, so I have one of these, which is
Hold on.
not satisfying.
We got 5 seconds. Hold
Fake
on.
soda.
Like 7 seconds. Sorry.
Jesus.
I'm so off. Oh,
Get together, Dave.
Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Looking for them monsters with Varla Ventura. That's what we are doing tonight. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have her till the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is here, hanging out with us, doing all things possible to talk about the weird and strange. And we're talking about little people here from First Nations and American Indian descent, where these little humanoid creatures stand about 18 inches to 24 inches tall, allegedly having their own communities out in the forests and up mountains and underground. It's pretty amazing how versatile they are.
Yeah, and there's places that you don't go. Or if you do go, you have to ask permission, of course, before you go, which is, I think that's the polite thing to do anyway.
There is actually up on the closest reservation by my house is the Cannon Lake Indian Band. And they actually have on one of the mountains that the band is in the valley. You apparently take this trail and you drive up it. You get to this area where you can't drive any further. And apparently there is a spirit of a grizzly bear that guards the next walking trail. And if the grizzly bear doesn't like you, he doesn't allow you to pass. And if he does like you, you can walk the path up to the little people's city.
How do you know?
I guess village, I should say. Village.
I think I would pass the test. I like bears a lot. I grew up around bears. I'm good with bears. I feel like I could pass that test. I don't know. Maybe that's too egotistical of me. You probably definitely need to leave your ego if you're going up a path and talking to a bear spirit, for sure.
Apparently the bear spirit very much wants to see you have a clear conscience and heart.
Oh, I have a very clear conscience. I feel no guilt.
Oh, could be. Could be.
You know, there's that.
So, but with this, you know, we also hear these stories of little people mimicking humans that you may know, trying to call you and lure you into the forest. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah. So I actually, I think I mentioned to you that I have been struggling to finish a book, which won't be out until next April. But I finished it. And the book kind of it has a lot of lore and mythology and magic around it, but it's sort of organized by plants. But as I'm kind of diving into this crazy deep realm of plants and folklore and all of this stuff, I kept stumbling upon certain little stories that really stood out to me. And among those were the quite a few sort of punishing stories where someone had gone into the forest for the wrong reasons, or had been sent in there innocently, and then the sort of the Hansel and Gretel thing. There's always like that wicked stepmother element. But as I was kind of diving really deep into these stories, I came upon something about changelings. So I believe it or not, I do have a point here. So the changelings. So we were talking about, the luring someone into the forest. And a changeling is essentially a fairy switch. So changeling being a fairy baby that is left in place of a human baby, and then the human baby is taken away. And the number one question I've been asked over the years is why? Why would the fairies want to leave a baby? And why would they take the human baby? And I think we've kind of discussed why they would take the human baby, right? It's like, oh, you got this healthy, buoyant child. You take it away, you raise it among the fae, you sort of teach it your ways, and then it can kind of become this hybrid person creature in the world, right? And there's lots of stories of those being kind of the original magicians and things. But I finally stumbled upon why a fairy baby might be left in exchange. It's not just to get the human baby. That's not always the case. And it's a question that people have asked me over the years, and I've actually poured through folklore trying to figure it out and asked people, like, why? Why would the fairies, who seemingly have it all, leave a baby here? What is it? Is it to teach us a lesson? Like, what's the point? And finally, I found one very obscure reference when I wasn't looking for it. Of course, I was looking for something else. I found this very obscure reference and this old collection by Joseph Jacobs. I think it was in his collection. I've forgotten now exactly. I've read so many different collections of folklore, but I'm pretty sure it was a Joseph Jacobs collection. And all he did was make vague reference to the fact that a changeling would be left with humans if a sick changeling baby was nursed by a human baby, or by a mother who thought it was her own child. It could restore the life of an otherwise sickly fairy baby. So honestly, Dave, that kind of blew my mind, because on a couple levels, one, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. But then also, oh, they have sickness. They're not immune to the problems and issues that we have, right? Sickness, war, challenges, all of these things, right? So it kind of made me it sort of shifted my thinking a little bit. It's like, oh, well, maybe they're doing it they're doing it because they want to protect this creature that they love. So, it's a light, gently intentioned kidnapping.
Gently intentioned. Boy, that is the most politically correct way to put child abduction.
Oh, yeah.
In the fairy realm.
Yeah.
In there. My goodness.
It's not good.
No.
Don't take that out of context. As a soundbite, that would not bode well for either of us.
No, it would not.
So my point being that it did kind of shift the idea for me that, all was well in this fairy realm, and that they didn't need any kind of human intervention, bringing that back to the idea that, there's a protection element or trying to preserve the forest. I mean, you just kind of think about human intervention into the natural world. And if fairies rely on certain elements of the forest, you could be mushrooms and berries. If we're encroaching on that to the point that those are no longer available, there's, then they're also threatened. And I've long thought that about Bigfoot, to be honest with you. If I were Bigfoot, I would be hiding as far deep into the forest. But as time has progressed, there is less forest. There is less deep, dark forest to hide in. So what do? Throw something and distract them while you run away.
That's all you can do. That's why I tell people, when you go into an area where there's a alleged dogman, bring some tennis balls with you, because you never know. Get them to get them to.
Everybody knows in your satchel you carry a stake for any errant werewolves. I mean, there's certain things you just carry with you at all times. A bone.
Hey,
I think that's an old that there is a fairy tale, and I think it's the Baba Yaga, who is the she's the Russian, she's also Ukrainian. The Baba Yaga, she's the witch who lives in the forest, and the way to escape her is to carry in your bag. The story goes is that the little girl was sent to the witch. She was go check with your aunt and have her fix this button, or some kind of ridiculous task like that. And the little girl knew that she was being sent to a witch. So she went to her other aunt and said, what do I do? My stepmom's sending me to this witch. And so the good aunt says, well, here's what you do. You throw bread to this. You're going to come upon a tree, and you tie a ribbon around this tree. And then you're going to see a ferocious beast. And then you throw him this scrap of beef and a little bit of bread. And basically she packs this little satchel of things. So as she goes into the forest, she, instead of her eyes being poked out by the twigs, she's tied them up with a lovely ribbon. Instead of this beast jumping on her and ripping open her throat, she's given him a little scrap, and then he's chewing on the bone as she continues on until she eventually encounters the witch and is forced to either outsmart her or being boiled alive. That's kind of the story, how the story goes.
It's almost like the Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah. Oh, I think Little Red Riding Hood is a complete ripoff of the Baba Yaga. Absolutely.
Well, that actually brings up another topic, because nursery rhymes, many of them are actually very morbid.
Oh, yes, they are. Ring around the posy.
Yeah.
Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy. That's supposed to be a plague chant.
Ashes, ashes, we all fall down.
Because you had to burn all the bodies because there was no place to bury them. Yeah. Quite a few of those little creepy. Yeah, it's been very interesting, because I'll tell you, just on that topic, there is a absolutely terrifying version of Cinderella. It's terrifying. If you are a fan of Cinderella, you don't want to know this version. Should I tell it, or should we just
as long
let
as it's
people
clean.
know it's out there?
It's clean.
I mean, can things get chopped off and be bloody? Is that considered clean?
That's okay.
Spoiler alert, things get chopped off. So the reason that I know this story is because I'm organized a book of lore and fairy and folklore, and it's organized around specific plants. One of those plants is the hazel, which is a plant that is steeped in lore. It's been used by witches and druids and people all around the world for thousands of years as a sacred plant. And there's a variation, there's a species of hazel in most of the northern hemisphere and a bit in the southern hemisphere as well. So very revered plant. So it just so happened that I came upon this version. It was the Grimm's brothers version of Cinderella. The Cinderella story that we all know is by Charles Perrault, and he was French. And anyway, I won't get too deep into the botany of it all, because we'll save that for when the book comes out, because I got plenty of that. But long story short, instead of this version of Cinderella actually doesn't involve a pumpkin. In fact, it involves a branch of a hazel. Her mother has died. Her father remarries. He goes off to this fair, and the two stepsisters say, "Oh, bring us back gowns and pearls and glorious things." And she says, "Oh, just bring me the twig of the branch of a tree that knocks your hat off on the way home, Father." So he does. He brings gowns and pearls and all of these things to the, nasty older sisters, and brings her this twig. I think he probably could have given her a necklace myself in the process, but, read between the lines, Dad. So anyway, he gets this, he gives her this hazel twig, and she loves it. And she takes it out immediately, and she goes and she plants it on her mother's grave, and it very quickly grows into this beautiful tree. And there are birds in this tree, and the birds are in fact the things that she communes with, and that actually drop her. There's no fairy godmother, and there's no pumpkin. The birds are the ones that drop down a beautiful golden gown and beautiful slippers. And it's not one night at the ball, it's 3 nights. And over these 3 nights, she goes to the ball, and she wears a more beautiful dress every night. And the prince is constantly just like completely, "Oh, you're so wonderful." He even coats the stairs with pitch in order to get her shoe to stick, so that he can try and capture her. And he follows her home, but she disappears in this garden, because of course she goes into this magic tree. The tree protects her, and then she drops down and goes and puts herself in the ashes again and hides the dress, and no one knows that she was this amazing, beautiful princess at this ball. So Prince comes along, he brings the shoe, he brings it from door to door. But really in this version, actually, he doesn't bring it from door to door. He just takes it straight to theirs, because he followed her through and saw what garden she went into. So he goes straight there, and he tries each sister. Well, the first sister, she gets her foot in there real nice. Do the missing shoe, whatever, that whole story. She gets her foot in there real nice, but her toe is sticking out. And so her mother says, "Here," hands her a knife, just chop your toe off. When you're a queen, it won't matter. You won't even need to walk. So she does. She chops the toe off, and she sticks her bloody foot into the shoe, and away they go into the carriage. "Oh, the shoe fits. Okay, you must be my true bride." They take off, and a bird in that magical hazel tree sings down and says some kind of rhyme like, "Look at the shoe, look at the shoe. It's the blood shows she's not for you," or something like that. Some really creepy, very Grimm brothers chant. And then, so he turns around and he goes back. He looks at the shoe. It's bloody. He turns around and goes back. I guess he just dumps the shoe out, and he brings it to is anyone else here? So the other sister, she's real happy because she gets to try the shoe. She slides her foot into the shoe, and it fits perfectly, except her heel doesn't quite fit in. So what does the mother do? Just chop your heel off. When you're a queen, it won't matter. You're not going to need to walk. Just chop your heel off. So she does. She chops her heel. She chops the back of her foot off, slides her foot into the shoe, and away they go in the carriage. It's a match made in heaven. This is the person I've been looking for. And as they pass under the magical hazel tree, what happens? Bird, same chant. Look in the shoe. She's not for you. There's blood in the shoe. She's not for you. Something like, I think that's what it is. There's blood in the shoe. She's not the one for you. So, he didn't notice all of this blood spurting apparently before. He goes back. He takes the shoe back, and he says, "There's really no one else here. This is the house I followed her to." And then the father says, "Well, it's Cinderella, but she's just, picking lentils out of the ashes in the kitchen all night. There's no way she was there." She comes out. She puts the shoe on. It fits perfectly. They ride out, and as they pass under the hazel tree, the birds chant, "There's no blood in the shoe. She's the one for you." It's a very different version of Cinderella. So, I don't know. I'm excited by that story.
But it still amazes me about, how all these children's cartoons and stories and legends and fairy tales are just twisted. It's like very
So twisted, so dark, so much darkness. And then the moral is always just to get the child to behave better, but then also sometimes the moral is sort of ambiguous. Another one that I explored ad nauseum, and because it's a very sickening story, is the juniper tree. And let's just say that story involves using a very heavy iron trunk to chop one of the characters' heads off. I won't get into any more than that, but it is absolutely brutal. And then it always kind of like the sort of happily ever after part. It just you're still left with this horrifying feeling in the pit of your stomach. But Dave, that is really. I heard some Andersen fairy tales and some Grimm fairy tales at a very young age, and those really stayed with me. The Little Mermaid, for example, is full of gruesome imagery. I believe there's a line in there that, she trades in the ability to sing. She has to trade something to be able to walk on land. And so she trades in every step she takes is like 1,000 little daggers stabbing into her feet. So she has feet now and she can walk, but it's so painful. But it's this idea that she can just endure this pain because she wants to see what it's like to be human and, be on land and hang out with the prince and all of that stuff. And of course, we don't have, can you imagine a Disney cartoon with the Ariel walking with blood just gushing from her feet because it felt like she was walking on 1,000 daggers? That's just not going to make it through the censors. It would make it on YouTube. That's not going to make it through the censors.
No, it'd make it on YouTube.
Yeah. So there, but you're right. There's a lot of dark imagery, and then as someone who spends far too much time reading and exploring folklore, I am always reading between the lines and often finding the same story retold within a few years period, and then sort of comparing that to what was happening historically and also what was happening in terms of whoever, if the person was living in England, what was happening with the Church of England at the time, or was it a translation from the French? All those you can look at that historical context and you can see the agendas that are overlaid within the stories. And these are children's tales. So, shaping those minds young, making sure they pray to the right thing.
Yes.
Don't step on that loaf of bread, you ungrateful Ingrid.
Never step on that wrong loaf of bread.
Eat your gruel.
That right. You got that right. Varla, we have about 2 minutes to go here with you in another show that has flown on by. And I find it absolutely amazing how these shows that we do with you just get quicker and quicker. But it's so much fun. And I really do appreciate you helping us out and coming here each month. My question to you is, where can people get a hold of you?
Well, I'll just thank you, Dave, for indulging me and letting me talk about weird things for all of this time. I so appreciate you. You can find me at my website, varlaventura.net. I'm on all the socials as Varla Ventura. That's about it. I got a new book coming out, but it won't be out till April of 2025. So in the meantime, buy all my old books and light a candle. Light a candle for me.
What's with the candle for?
Oh, just, let's hope everything goes well with the production of the book.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think you're going to do amazing. I really do. What is the title of your new book that'll be coming out? Exact title
is still to be decided, but as of this moment, it is called Enchanted Plants. So,
Enchanted Plants.
Yeah, subtitle pending, actual title pending. Publication date pending. It's all
You're
pending.
You're getting there, though. Varla, Ventura, always a pleasure to
Thank
have
you,
you on
Dave.
Space
Thank you.
Radio. Coming up next on the Mighty SOR, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Robin Haynes comes in for the Cryptid Report. It's Dave 101 night and the weird news of the week. We have it all coming up right after this. Stay tuned, everybody. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
That's you.
All right, we're clear.
Awesome. So that's you, actually, huh? It's Ghost you.
No,
It's not?
I always hire voices.
It's definitely you. It's so you.
No.
Shut up. Oh, sorry. No. It's totally not you. It's totally not you.
All right.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for letting me go on and on about ridiculous bloody stumps and such.
No problem, buddy.
Oh, just wait till that book comes out, though. It's so brutal. It's so brutal, and I have to make sure that they understand it's not for children. You know, like
not for children.
Teenagers can handle it, but it's, sometimes people see fairy tales, and then they buy the book for their kids, and then I feel sort of bad. But then again, I was traumatized by fairy tales as a young child, so
me too.
Me
too.
Yeah, I think I was probably like 6 when I read The Little Mermaid and read the thing about her shredded feet. And I thought, why would you ever want to do that? Why wouldn't you just stay underwater with all your sisters in your beautiful gardens? We always want what we cannot have.
I don't know. All right, I'll let you go.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Nice to talk to you.
No problem.
See you in a month.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Varla Ventura, everybody. I'm going to take a quick break here. We will be right back. Stay tuned. Hold on. We'll be right back. All right. We're getting ready. Isn't Varla awesome? Thank you to Tim Mothman and his goatee, T-Bone with a hat trick, and Wine with 2 super chats tonight. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate the love and support on Spaced Out Radio. So thank you very much. Yes. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store by going to spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out. And here we go, everybody. Here we go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in all around the world, including those tuned in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Falsiloquence is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X or Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Licorice McKechnie, a.k.a. Christina McKechnie. She was born on October 2nd, 1945 in Edinburgh, Scotland. As a child, she loved writing poetry and would incorporate those writings into her music as an adult. Hanging out at local music clubs, McKechnie would meet the man that would introduce her to the person that would make her aspirations of being a musician come true. In 1961, Herbert Jansch and McKechnie would meet at one of those local clubs. Jansch had quit his job as a nurseryman to become a full-time musician, and recognizing McKechnie's talent, introduced her to his flatmate, Robin Williamson, that would create the band that would launch her into stardom. McKechnie's folksy voice and how she presented on stage made making her a star very easy. Looking to move and take their act to London, the three friends played local clubs and saved money to make the move. In 1963, the threesome did indeed make the move, and drawing from American acts such as Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, the trio practiced and played in London clubs together for a while. The plan was for Jansch and McKechnie to marry, and those plans went forward for a while. But without notice or reason, Jansch left London for Morocco and left McKechnie behind with Williamson. They decided to head back to Edinburgh, and Williamson would pick up a gig with a local duo, Clive Palmer, playing once a week in the Crown Bar. Williamson and McKechnie would become close and started dating during this time. Jansch had returned for a short time to the area, but after being given another chance to play with the band, soon left again. During this time, McKechnie didn't sing nor play. Williamson was touring around locally with Clive Palmer still and held auditions for a guitar player. They hired a guy named Mike Heron and named the band the Great String Band. Having been discovered by a small record label, the trio was asked to come to London and make a record. Again, McKechnie moved with her boyfriend, but was still not active with the band. After winning an award, the band broke up and everyone went their separate ways. Williamson and McKechnie made their way back to Edinburgh. Getting back together with Heron, they resurrected the Great String Band and started the second album. Enter Licorice McKechnie. She started appearing along with the band, not just as Williamson's girlfriend, but as a part of the creative process. Williamson and McKechnie would go to Morocco and bring back several exotic instruments that the band would incorporate into their music. In 1967, they would record the second album, and Licorice McKechnie was born out of the ashes into a vocalist for the band. The album went to #1 in the UK. Next stop was bigger clubs, and they were invited to play at the Speakeasy Club, the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and the UFO Club, all famous in the British music scene. They would record their third album with the cut The Minotaurs song being a favorite of the band and fans alike. They were nominated for a Grammy in the US and would add one more band member in 1968 named Rose Simpson. Invited to play at Woodstock, the band would come to America, but there were major issues. From the start, their performance seemed doomed. They were removed from their original spot and ended up playing on a date when fans were getting rowdy and tired. The band was left out of the recording of the entire festival and the soundtrack. Then McKechnie started to practice Scientology. This left her bandmates feeling isolated from her, and she left the band in 1972. The remaining members disbanded in 1974, and that was the end of what was known as the Incredible String Band. Little is known about McKechnie's life from this point on. What is known is she married a musician named Brian Lambert and divorced sometime in the 80s. The last time anyone heard from her was in 1990, and it was her sister that would be the last person she would talk to. She was reported missing late that year, and it was surmised that McKechnie was last seen hiking in the Arizona desert. Although little is known about Christine Licorice McKechnie, one thing is for certain. She had an amazing voice and brought a genre of music to the United States that we may not have if not for her.
And thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing for another great story. If you want more just like that, you can head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing and hang on out, chill out, play as many as you want, all for free. From the missing to the mysterious, it is that time where we say hello to Robin Haynes, because the cryptid report is right now. Robin Haynes is back to talk all things Sasquatch, Dogman, and other creepy cryptids as we go along, trying to figure out this strange world that we live in. Robin, always a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, sweetie, how are you? It's always thrilling being here. I love this show.
I am great, thank you. Great.
I can't wait. I'm going to see you soon.
1 month. 1 month I'll be at
wait.
the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. Never been to Alaska. I'm expecting a lot of corn, which is good.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. We always have a lot of fun, but it's going to be fantastic this year. I'm really excited.
Me too. And I appreciate you always taking the time to be here with us, as this is the condensed version of the cryptid report. I know you're staying up late. All right.
Oh, my pleasure.
Have there been a lot of sightings recently?
It's starting to pick up again. Yeah. You know, after the big shift, they were pretty tired. Everything was really quiet in the woods. They're getting a lot more mobile. People are seeing a lot more of them. You know, this time of year, they get real active anyway because it's not too hot, not too cold. We have had a lot of really severe weather going on and off across like the U.S. and, various other places besides that. Part of it's from the shift, part of it's from the pole shift, and the El Nino and everything else. So that's kind of got in the way, but they're getting active. They're really getting active right now. They're very talkative right now. For anybody that mind speaks with them or, gets any verbal contact from them, they seem to be really chatty right now. For whatever reason, every night I'm up and they keep me up all night long. They are doing the whole mind speak thing. They've got a lot to say.
What are they telling you?
Right now, they're still, hyped up on the whole big shift thing. The spiritual battle's going on. The shift is going on. The second wave of the shift is going to hit on the 8th of April. And the third wave will hit the night of the 13th and into the morning of the 14th. So they're kind of getting prepared for that. It's going to hit at the same time as the eclipse. And that's turning into be a much bigger eclipse than what we've ever had before. A lot of things going on with that. So they're real talkative about that. And what they do with me is they give me bits and pieces. And it's like I get up and then I write it all down. And it's like puzzle pieces. And then I'm supposed to put the puzzle together to figure out exactly what it is they either want me to do or what they want me to know. But they're definitely more active. Seem to be out and about more. A lot more sightings are up. People are getting a lot more contacts. So yeah, it's that time of year again. You know, fall it gets like that, and it gets like that going into spring.
Okay, so I want to ask you, because there are so many different types of real animals that we know. And I'm not saying Sasquatch isn't real, but I'm saying animals that people are familiar with.
Mhm.
Okay, and I'm saying bears, cougars, grizzly bears, wolf packs, and everything. What happens with these territorial animals when they come across something like a Bigfoot or a dogman?
Well, the Sasquatch are always going to be the apex. That's just the way it is. Okay, they're bigger and badder than anything out there. They're a type of people that it doesn't matter. They're out living in the same territories as these other animals, and so they're always going to be the apex. They've got control of the whole thing, and also they use a lot of these animals as pets. They really and truly do. It's not uncommon to see it. I've got 3 that come through here that have a pet cougar. And that's always a fun time. So, but the coyotes and the wolves, they're constantly using those as pets. The bears even will tend to stay away from them. Nothing wants to mess with them. Nothing wants to go up against them. If they're a pet of theirs, that's a different story. But if not, everything normally will back down. Once in a while, you'll get like a grizzly or whatever that gets a little cocky and thinks it's going to take one on, but they literally can do away with them in a heartbeat.
So, if they are in their own territory, and Sasquatch is the apex predator,
Mhm.
how do bears or these other animals react if they haven't been in contact with any of them?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that they radiate a certain frequency. Okay. So it almost feels like on our bodies, it's like a type of radiation. Even though it's not radiation, it feels like that affects our bodies that way. Animals are hypersensitive to all forms of frequency and energy. So they're going to feel that the Sasquatch is around even before they get a visual sighting of them. And they normally, just from the feel of that energy change and the intensity of it, that alone will make them back off and avoid them. That's why you see like the dogs, even at home, we have this happen here once in a while. My dogs get along very well with them. They will play with them, touch them, whatever. But a dog will, if there's a Sasquatch around that is not familiar with the dog's going to panic. They get nervous, they get shaky, they get scared. You often hear about where people will have dogs trying to track one, and then they get so close to it, and all of a sudden the dogs turn around and run. It's the frequency. It's the energy that they radiate is so intense, and it messes with the animals. And that happens with the wildlife as well. That's why a lot of things, when they are in the area, they just back right off. Want nothing to do with them. It's a very, very intense. For anybody out there that has ever had close contact, like back in December, I had one that walked right like within 8 feet of me. And the energy, it was huge. And the energy from it was so intense. I wasn't afraid of him at all, but the energy was so intense. I literally said, you need to pull back the energy. My body can't handle it. It's too strong for me. And it did, but it was still so strong. I backed up 2 steps, which is unusual for me, but I did. I backed up 2 steps, and then I continued to talk to it. But it's just overwhelming. It feels like this entire heavy blanket of energy that just gets dumped on you because it's so strong. Like, I didn't get zapped. It's a common feeling when you have them around. So these other animals are going to feel that as well, and that makes them back off.
Okay, so what does this energy feel like for people who may not understand?
It's very, very heavy. It's very intense. It's like a lot of pressure that you feel. Your body can maybe tingle a little bit from it. But normally what I feel when they get real close to me like that, it just feels like heavy pressure. It's very different than if anybody's ever been zapped, which, knock on wood, I have not yet. I'm sure my day will come. But it just feels very, very heavy is the best way I can put it. And tingly. Like you can feel your whole body tingle from the intensity of it. It's not a sharp stab of energy like with a zap. It's just an overall, your whole body feels weighted down.
Is it heavy like paranormal ghost entity type heavy?
More so than that. Definitely more so than that. That's, like when I've had the spirits around, you can feel it a little bit, maybe a little bit tingly in your neck, that kind of thing. This is a much broader, bigger, like just almost like a blanket that's pushing up against you and pushing you back, like a wall that you can't see, that you can't get through, because it's so strong and it's so unbelievably heavy. It just bogs you down. It's not painful. It's not painful at all. It's just it's not scary feeling. It's just heavy. It's because they're so much bigger than we are. So right there, the energy coming off of them is in a bigger piece. But it's almost like if somebody were to go and take one of those weighted blankets and just lay it over the top of you, you feel all that pressure and that heaviness. It's basically the same thing. I do know of a few people that say, their skin got tingly or their hair stood up on their back of their neck or whatever. I don't normally get the tingliness. I just feel the weight of it. It is not a bad feeling. It is not painful in any way, shape, or form, but is excessively heavy. And you tend to get a little bit dizzy because it's so overwhelming.
Does this affect everybody the same way?
I don't think so. In my opinion, no, because everybody's body deals with things differently. So I don't think there's just one straight way that you're going to feel it. Everybody's body will deal with different energies and frequencies a different way. Your body picks up energy and frequency before your brain will. So your body is going to react to it quicker than your brain. But I do believe that because everybody's body chemistry is different people will be able to react in different ways.
Okay. Now, does this only happen with the Sasquatch, or is it also happening with other cryptids as well?
All the cryptids and the ETs. Yes, they all have it. I don't notice it like when I've had the visitations with the ETs and the abductions. I don't notice it as much with the ETs. A little bit, but not a lot. But definitely 100% with all cryptids, yes.
How or why? And the picture I'm getting in my head before I even ask this is almost like a skunk that they like they could spray it out like a pheromone.
Well, I think the thing of it is they can when they project emotion at you, because they can do a projection of emotion. They don't project the energy. It just radiates off of them. That's the thing. They don't do it on purpose. It's not done deliberately. It's just part of their body chemistry and part of their body makeup. It's all frequency, it's all energy, and it's at a much higher level than ours. We also radiate frequency and energy, but ours is much lower than what theirs are. So you end up getting it hit with it much stronger because they're at a much higher frequency and energy level than us. And you can ask them, and I recommend this to people all the time. Ask them to pull back the energy and frequency because it affects our body exactly like radiation poisoning would. And this is why you see researchers that have health issues when they have prolonged contact with Sasquatch. It is not done deliberately. They are not trying to hurt anybody. It's nothing like that. It's part of what they are. In fact, anytime the government has found any bodies or was able to get any, which is just beyond disgusting, but they use the instruments to test for radiation and it always pops on there every single time, whether they're dead or alive. It's just the energy and frequency that they are. But you can ask them to pull it back. And that's what I do with my groups when I work with them. I go out in the woods with them. I let them know I'm there. And I'm like, okay, guys, I need you to pull back the energy because it's too strong for my body, not trying to hurt you. They wear it for part of it's for protection, and part of it's just because that's who they are. So I always ask my groups and I've got several groups that I work with, and I always ask them to please pull it back. It's too strong for me. And I've never had any problems with it. They usually are pretty willing to. Ones that aren't familiar with you, it might take them a minute because they're going to read your intent. They're going to make sure that they know that you're safe before they pull it back.
Is it shown out of aggression or
No,
territorial?
absolutely not. No, not at all. Even the ones that are incredibly friendly, it has nothing to do with their emotional state. When it becomes their emotional state is if they're going to zap. If they're going to zap you because they're not comfortable with you, they don't like you, then yes, that has to do with their emotional state. The regular energy that encompasses them and is them and what makes them up and radiates off of them has nothing to do with their emotional state. It's part of who and what they are. Just like we radiate a certain frequency and energy, it's just who we are. We're in a lower frequency and dimension, obviously, than they are, but it doesn't change the fact that we still radiate it. It's just that ours is so much lower than theirs. When we have contact with theirs, it's overpowering to us.
I could
And it
just imagine.
depends. I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please go ahead.
It also depends if you are dealing with an individual or a group that stays more in the physical and doesn't, because there are clans that are old school, just like the Amish, then they're not going to use a lot of the paranormal abilities. The ones that stay in the physical do not radiate it as much, and are at a higher or lower frequency and energy than the ones per se that use a lot of the paranormal abilities, move through the portals. They are a much more intense and higher frequency and energy.
Okay. So with about 90 seconds or so to go here, how can people know if they're wandering in the forest, if this frequency is around? Will they recognize it right off the bat?
Their bodies will. Before their brains will, their bodies will react to it. And they'll just feel like they need to move away from it. Because they'll feel a change. They'll feel it's different. And it doesn't feel bad or good. It just feels different. It's not like when they're putting the wall of fear in you. It's not like when they're trying to scare you or make you feel good. It's not an emotional based thing. It's simply what they are. So your body is very much in tune with energy and frequency. Even if you don't know how to do any of the work with it, your body recognizes it before your brain will. So your body's going to feel that it feels off or that it feels different. And it's also going to pick up whether it feels comfortable around it.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense if you can handle it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it also depends on how you're going to take that energy as well. Are you going to accept it for something good, or are you going to accept it as something fearful that you should leave an area?
Exactly. But the thing that you need to know is when you feel that, and it's not going to give you an emotional response, it's a physical response you'll get from it. When you feel that and you feel like they're around, if there's some that feel that you're safe, you can ask them to pull that back a little bit and they will. If it's some that don't know you, can't trust you, or feel that, they're a little concerned with where you're at in their area, they probably will not change it.
Robin Haynes, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. We will talk to you again on the Cryptid Report next week. So
Absolutely.
Thank you. Robin Haynes, everybody. Coming up next, it's Dave 101 night and the weird news of the week. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio returns after this. This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott. All right, Robin, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Love you. I'll talk to you later.
Much love, my dear. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Robin Haynes, everybody. Robin Haynes. Robin Haynes. Robin Haynes. Be done with it. Welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Thurston Howell III. Good to see you. How's Lovey doing? Anybody else I miss? Who else is planning on sleeping in tomorrow for Good Friday? I know I am. Vanessa, Preston Beckett. Good to have you here. I'm having a good night tonight. It's been fun. Been loads of fun. Let's see. Where is this place? We got a couple minutes left. All right. Where are we going here? Thank you tonight to Brandon, Tim Mothman and his goatee, wine times 2, T-Bone with a hat trick of great super chats tonight. Loving the super chats. Thank you very much, everybody. Very much appreciate it. It really does help out. And everybody who's gone out of their way to buy some Spaced Out Radio swag, very much appreciate that. You guys look good. You really do look good in it. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing for my Dave 101. But that's okay. We got like 15 seconds. 15. No build WD-40 tonight. Highly disappointing. Here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind all of you that if you've done or mentioned or been to our archives, they are always free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night, that time of the week, where I say, get off my lawn. It's a Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Dave, D-A-V-E!
Now, normally, I don't trust the mainstream media anymore. And I don't really like the way it has gone. That's for another story altogether, because media outlets have become very political, very one-sided, which they are not supposed to be. Media outlets are supposed to be very, very neutral, down the middle, and most importantly, the voice of the people. We're seeing a lot of this bias, though, crawl into the UFO world that isn't very healthy. The job of a journalist is to cover the story and to cover both sides, not just printing one side because you feel or you opinionate that that is your purpose, is to promote one side over the other. We've seen it so much over the last 20 years that it's actually sickening, and people really do not understand where they can get their news, where they can get the proper information. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, as a former mainstream journalist, I can tell you that it bothers me that for the most part, we have to turn to alternative media to actually get the proper truth of what's going on. Now, how does this affect the UFO world? Well, there's a reporter out there who writes for The Guardian, and his name is Danny Lavelle. Great journalist. He's done very well with writing a bunch of subjects, but he's taken a lot of heat over the last few days regarding his UFO story in his interview with Sean Kirkpatrick. Now, we've talked about Sean Kirkpatrick numerous times on this show, and you all know my feeling on it as a commentator, not as a journalist, but as a commentator, that I don't appreciate the way he feels that UFOs are not here, that there is no evidence, no provable evidence, nothing that is really taking us down the road to show us that humanity is about to expand into the stars, time travel, or different dimensions. So here's where I kind of crossed the line with Danny Lavelle. Is he wrote an article about Sean Kirkpatrick. It seemed very one-sided. It seemed to really embrace the fact that Kirkpatrick did his best at the time of Arrow, when he was the head of the department that was supposed to be looking for UFOs. Now, many of the stories tend to look at, the fact that they weren't paying attention to whistleblowers. And because of that heat, though, the heat that he was taking over the article from the UFO crowd, he's decided to go down the path that many have already, and that is goat and bait the people who are his critics, taking cheap shots after pot shots from people who aren't too pleasant to him. He's taken the bait and firing back about how he didn't do his job properly, allegedly, how he didn't, use alternative sources when he could have quoted other people. And I'll tell you, as a journalist, our job is not to be a part of the story. Our job is to actually call it the way we see it down the middle. And yet so many have forgotten that in the social media age where they try to put themselves in the story. Everybody is prone to criticism. Hell, I take a lot of criticism on this show myself. Do I bite into it? 99.9% of the time, no. But if I see a snarky comment about the music being too loud, or my guest wasn't what they expected, or that the first half hour was filled with music and saying hello to people, which prior to the radio show, it's only 6 minutes, I kind of give a cheap shot back. Because you do have to be able to fight back every now and again. But there's a time and a place for snark and for opinion. When it comes to a lot of the journalists in this field, we seem to have taken sides, whether you're a UFO believer or whether you are a UFO denier and just somebody who wants this story to go away, or you're so hung up on the community rage that is out there, then what happens is you start goading people on social media because people have short tempers on social media. And that includes journalists who are calling names to people. We've seen journalists, hammer down on Lou Elizondo being a fraud. We've seen them do that to David Grush and many others within the field who have talked about this community. To me, that's just passive aggressiveness to try and pump up their amount of tweets, to pump up their stories, and so much more. Look, you don't have to believe this story. I don't care if you're a journalist or not, and you think that little green men don't exist. But your opinion when you're writing a story doesn't matter. At least that's the way it should be. Now, without putting myself on a pedestal, I would say that if I was writing a story about UFOs and I was writing an article and I got an exclusive interview with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, my next phase in that interview is to find a counterpoint. Because when you write an op-ed on somebody and you don't have any counterpoints, it doesn't work very well. It shows a bias. Now, Denny Lavelle stated that he tried to get counterpoints, but nobody responded to him. Now, I recall reading the article and not seeing him make that point. That should be part of the article. But I'm not the writer. I'm not the person who's telling the story. And every piece of journalism is different, from print journalism to radio, what we do, television, and so much more. Here's the problem, though. If we're not going to tell the full story, why are we telling the story at all? Now, this may be a boring Dave 101 for many of you out there, but this Dave 101 is about trying to put the pieces together, because there is not good reporting and not good journalism on this topic. It's not fair, it's egotistical, it's brash, and many people don't enjoy it. For instance, I don't enjoy the critics. I don't enjoy the criticism and some of the cheap shots that people on Twitter or X especially give an author or a writer. But on the flip side, as the journalist goes, you have to be able to not only take your bumps, but you have to be able to write a story that tells both sides. Fair is fair. Okay, there's only one truth, and that is the truth of me, the truth of you, and the story that's in between, which is the real truth. We're only reporting on what we want to hear. And too many times we see in so-called journalism or online or citizen journalism or whatever, we see too many times reporters baiting and goading people for aha, gotcha moments. I hate that. Okay. If somebody is giving you their time for an interview, whether you agree with them or not, of course you could press them on harder questions. That's the job. But when you're trying to set someone up to make them look like a fool, that doesn't work. That doesn't work whatsoever. What needs to happen at that point is we need to have a little bit more professionalism. Now, I'm not saying that Denny Lavelle isn't professional. From everything I've seen prior to the UFO article, I think he's a great writer. I think he's a good journalist. I do. Why he would take a different slant when it comes to UFOs and then start making fun of people to goad them into following what he says, maybe it's about clickbait. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems we have. Clickbait today has been a takeover of sorts on social media, where I can put a post out, say, interviewing Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. It's not going to get a lot of hits. But if I put on there something along the lines of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick says there are no UFOs or aliens here, that's going to get a lot more. It's about a catchy title. YouTube doesn't really care, or other social media don't really care about what the content is. But if you want to work your way into the algorithms, you figured out the algorithms on how to get more views, more clicks, or whatever it may be, you have to have a catchy title. I watch a lot of politics away from this microphone. And I could tell you this, I'm especially watching what is happening in Canada politically. As a concerned citizen, I think it's my job to do so. As a voter, I think it's my job to do so. But I could tell you the YouTube channels that I watch, it's all about sensationalism on clickbait. And it's getting tiresome. You know, they're more interested in getting the clickbait and the likes and the views than they are about spewing the truth of what's actually said in places like Question Period, which we have up here. We have to be able to move the ball forward. Proper reporting, proper evidence, proper journalism goes a long way. But if you're out there trolling on X and you see these journalists out there who are trying to bait you into it, just ignore it. I don't understand why we can't, because if we ignore it, they go away. Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post is a prime example of that. He loves to rile up the UFO community. We know he's had his own sighting. We know he's had his own experience. But he loves making fun of the UFO community because he knows that he can rile up people extremely fast by calling Lou Elizondo a fraud or something along those lines. He knows the people are going to go nuts. He knows they're going to retweet his tweets. That's good for his popularity. He's not a dumb man. Popularity and social media clicks mean a lot. If you want to get back at somebody who's writing something that you don't agree with, don't retweet it. Don't put it out there. You can't. You can't, because what they are doing is they are taking that information that you're giving them and they are taking advantage. It's a win-win for them. The best thing that you can do is just ignore, block, unfollow, roll your eyes, grind your teeth, go hit a punching bag. Or if you have a safe space in your house, go rock yourself to sleep there. It's not worth your time, because all of these journalists, what they are doing is they're trying to show how popular their topic is and their story is. That's great for the editors because it creates more reads. More reads equals more advertising money. And it all starts because you're offended by what they wrote. That's the truth of it all. It's nothing more than that. I just wish that journalists, whether they're on the belief side or the non-believer side, would just do us a favor and call the story down the middle. Is that too much to ask? Is proper journalism that dead and deceased that we can't just get one sound, credible story that calls it down the middle. That's all I want. That's what we try and do. We have to vet our sources. And bide your time that if Spaced Out Radio goes the way I want in the next little bit, we're going to have more time to do that. Because it's almost time to bring proper journalism back to this field. Because this story needs to be told. And if nobody's going to tell it properly, we need to do it ourselves. And that is your Dave 101. Here comes the news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's News!
All right, we got some weird stuff happening. We're going to share with you because I know you guys like it. Yeah, I do. A new water slide is set to be introduced this summer at the United States' most haunted lake that has already claimed the lives of at least 700 people since 1956. Where is this place? We need some ghost hunting there. Yep. What do you do if a lake continues to claim lives over the decades? Well, of course, you put up some water slides. The lake in question is in northern Georgia and has earned an eerie reputation. Lake Lanier is an artificial lake built atop towns and cemeteries and was named after writer, poet, musician, and Confederate Army veteran Sidney Lanier. It was created in the 1950s as part of the River and Harbors Act, which claimed or aimed to improve and reinforce waterways across the United States. But despite being built to serve the Atlanta community in need of a water source or hydroelectric power, the lake's creation was marred by social injustice and a disturbing construction strategy, which saw locals displaced to make room for the body of water. In the 5 years that it took to complete construction, Lake Lanier caused families and businesses to be pushed out of what was once a primarily black area, as well as about 20 graveyards to be relocated. This resulted in a ghost towns and abandoned streets and houses, as well as tombstones sitting intact at the bottom of the lake. Now, if you ever paid attention to any good horror film, building upon an old burial ground is rarely a good idea. In the 7 decades since its construction in the mid-50s, the lake has claimed the lives of 700 people. Thankfully, the deaths have never been considered supernatural in nature, as far as we know. But unfortunately, as the lake was not built for recreational purposes, it creates other issues. The sunken buildings and trees beneath the lake have proven to be extremely hazardous to swimmers in the water. Underwater hazards can be deadly when swimming, and some 700 people who have died at the lake since it was created have gone through the worst case scenario. Now, a water park, though, is set to be introduced this summer, and it is hoping to be the first water slide coaster to Georgia, according to Margaritaville at Lake Lanier Islands. Park officials confirmed the build, writing, "This monumental investment marks the most significant expansion of Margaritaville at the Lanier Islands in decades," adding Georgia's largest water slide complex to the water park, boasting an impressive 15 slides in total here in 2024. Yeah, because I want a water slide where a lake murders people. I don't know about you. That doesn't sound like fun to me. A buyer has shelled out $718,750 for one of the most controversial wooden planks in cinematic history, the door frame panel that saved Rose's life in the 1997 film Titanic. Heritage Auctions announced the ornate piece of wood, sold as part of a Planet Hollywood movie memorabilia auction, fetched the ship-sinking sum after numerous bids. The prop, made out of balsa wood, was based on the most famous complete piece of debris salvaged from the real sinking of the Titanic in 1912, the auction house said. Often mistakenly referred to as a door, the ornate structure was in reality part of the door frame just above the first-class lounge entrance. The auction house acknowledged the very controversy surrounding the wooden plank. The iconic prop has caused much debate from fans, many of whom have argued that the floating wood panel could have supported both Jack and Rose, making his fateful decision to stay in the frigid water and empty gesture. Oh my God, people. It's a movie. Let it go. It's been gone for almost 30 years. It's 27 years old, this film. Just let it be. Some people. In Helsinki, Finland, a shortage of eggs in shops during Holy Week has led Norwegians to flock to supermarkets across the border in Sweden and hoard the traditional Easter food. Yeah. The center's Maximat food store ran out of Easter eggs, or regular eggs, this past Tuesday, while the adjacent Nordby supermarket had to have limit its number of eggs purchased to 320 packs per household. Not only are the Swedish stores better stocked with eggs, a traditional Easter treat needed for many dishes, but the product is also more affordable in Sweden. It's far cheaper than what you get in Norway. If you could get eggs in Norway at all, that is, said Stale Volvim, the head of the Nordby shopping center. The last time I was in Norway, the store was empty of eggs. A pack of 20 eggs in Sweden sells for the price equivalent of $39.90 in Norwegian kroner, about $3.70, about 30% less than the price in Norway. My goodness. Watch out for them eggs. And finally tonight, a Canadian man who spent thousands of dollars tattooing almost his entire body revealed that inside his butt cheeks was the most painful part. Remy stated he got his first tattoo at 15 years ago when he had his son's name written and scripted in 2009. Since then, he's covered up most of his body, but says, stay away from the inner butt. It hurts like hell. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god itself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Sweetness. We did. I can turn that light off so we can see. Right on. Good show, everybody. Good show. Y'all did well. Y'all did very well tonight. Way to go, people. Way to go. All right, what are we doing here? Come on, Dave. What are we doing? Loading that up. That's what we're doing. And we have to download this here. Oh, cool. All right. I'm going to let you guys go for tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night. My throat is really sore. Well, it's not really sore, but it's just itchy and scratchy. And I don't like talking right now with it like this. So you guys go have a good night. Big thank you to T-Bone with a hat trick, Wine with Two, Tim and Brandon for the super chats. Tomorrow night on the show, Dan Warren is going to join us talking about the UFO stuff. He's from the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis on TikTok. Yeah. So we're going to deal with him tomorrow night. Hope you have fun with us. And we'll see you all tomorrow night, everybody. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.